Welcome everybody to another edition of Wrestling News with the Dude. How's everyone doing? I'm doing really great. On to GTS news. Matt Wolf is not dead, bro. And Tony Chini and Punjabi are both the same person, but different character. Everyone knows that Doo-Hop is El Jefe Rojo. However, two of these guys are the same person, but different character. Just like Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love. All three of them are different character, but these three are portrayed by Mick Foley, the hardcore legend. So, Matt Wolf is not dead, of course, but he stands up against Grimm, and he doesn't stand himself alone, as Hog turned his back on Grimm. And this is what I really love to see. Hog as a heel, rather than being a boring babyface. So we also got the returning of Manabo. Y'all like his return? Yeah, you do. And if you have seen on Patreon, you have heard about his sex stories, which I wouldn't want to spoil in this channel. So go check it out if you haven't seen it already. And plus, it's only $1 for a month on Patreon. And here's a question. Is Matt Wolf related to Joe Wolf because these two have the same last name? Are these two actually brothers? Let me know in the comments below. Are they actually related to each other, considering that these two have the same last name? G1 Climax 29 is coming up real soon as we get on to New Japan Pro Wrestling news. So the first night will be kicking off at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas, which is going to be an A block first. However, Jon Moxley is in a B block, which means that he's not allowed to wrestle or show up at another company's show in America because he's under contract with AEW. Jon Moxley won't be seen until the second night of G1 Climax, which is a week after first night of G1 Climax 29. So we got 5 matches each night for G1 Climax. So for the first night, we got the American Psycho Lance Archer Texas Zone versus the aerial assassin Will Ospreay, the Road General Bad Luck Fale versus King of Darkness Evil, Cold Skull Sanada versus Zack Sabre Jr., Kenta versus Kota Ibushi, the Golden Star. In the main event of the evening, we got Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan, versus the Rainmaker IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada. And we will see these two facing off once again, but the first time in America. On the second night of G1 Climax 29, Juice Robinson will be taking on Shingo Takagi. Tetsuya Naito will be taking on the comedic guy Toru Yano. Jeff Cobb from ROH will be taking on Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii. Hiroki Goto will be taking on Switchblade Jay White in a rematch from April. In the main event of the evening, Jon Moxley will compete in his first G1 Climax match against Tai Chi. And the third night of G1 Climax, Sanada versus Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada versus Zack Sabre Jr., Evil versus Kota Ibushi, Bad Luck Fale versus Lance Archer. Main event of the evening, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kenta in a dream match. Night 4, Shingo Takagi versus Toru Yano, Hiroki Goto versus Juice Robinson, Switchblade, Jay White versus Tomohiro Ishii, Jeff Cobb versus Jon Moxley. Main event of the evening, Taichi versus Tetsuya Naito in a rematch from January. Night 5, Kenta versus Lance Archer, Bad Luck Fale versus Kazuchika Okada, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr., Evil versus Sanada in a brotherly battle. Main event of the evening, Kota Ibushi versus Will Ospreay in a rematch from Wrestle Kingdom 13. Night 6, Jeff Cobb versus Juice Robinson, Switchblade, Jay White versus Toru Yano, Hiroki Goto versus Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi versus Taichi. Main event of the evening, Jon Moxley versus Tomohiro Ishii. Night 7, Bad Luck Fale versus Zack Sabre Jr., Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Lance Archer. Kota Ibushi versus Sanada. Evil versus Kenta. Main event of the evening, brotherly battle. Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay. Night 8, Juice Robinson versus Toru Yano. Hiroki Goto versus Taichi. Switchblade, Jay White versus Jeff Cobb. Jon Moxley versus Shingo Takagi. Main event of the evening, Tetsuya Naito versus Tomohiro Ishii. Night 9, Kota Ibushi versus Lance Archer. Bad Luck Fale versus Will Ospreay. Evil versus Zack Sabre Jr. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Sanada. Main event of the evening, Kazuchika Okada versus Kenta in a dream match that everyone wants to see. Night 10, Juice Robinson versus Tomohiro Ishii. Jeff Cobb versus Taichi. Rematch. Switchblade, Jay White versus Shingo Takagi. Hiroki Goto versus Toru Yano. Main event of the evening, dream match that all of us want to see, especially for Jon Moxley's fans. Jon Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito. Night 11, Bad Luck Fale versus Kota Ibushi. Kazuchika Okada versus Lance Archer. Evil versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Will Ospreay versus Zack Sabre Jr. Main event, Kenta versus Sanada. Night 12, Jeff Cobb versus Shingo Takagi. Juice Robinson versus Tetsuya Naito. Hiroki Goto versus Tomohiro Ishii. Jon Moxley versus Toru Yano. Main event of the evening, Switchblade, Jay White versus Taichi. Night 13, Bad Luck Fale versus Kenta. Lance Archer versus Zack Sabre Jr. Evil versus Will Ospreay. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kota Ibushi. Main event of the evening, Kazuchika Okada versus Sanada. Night 14, Tomohiro Ishii versus Toru Yano. Juice Robinson versus Taichi. Hiroki Goto versus Jeff Cobb. Switchblade, Jay White versus Jon Moxley. Dream match that I want to see. Main event of the evening, brotherly battle, Shingo Takagi versus Tetsuya Naito. Night 15, Lance Archer versus Sanada. Bad Luck Fale versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Kota Ibushi versus Zack Sabre Jr. Kenta versus Will Ospreay. Your main event, Evil versus Kazuchika Okada. Night 16, Jeff Cobb versus Tetsuya Naito. Hiroki Goto versus Jon Moxley. Switchblade, Jay White versus Juice Robinson. A rematch from G1 Special in San Francisco. Taichi versus Toru Yano. Main event of the evening, Shingo Takagi versus Tomohiro Ishii. Night 17, Kenta versus Zack Sabre Jr. Evil versus Lance Archer. Bad Luck Fale versus Sanada. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Will Ospreay. Main event of the evening, Kazuchika Okada versus Kota Ibushi. Night 18, Taichi versus Tomohiro Ishii. Hiroki Goto versus Shingo Takagi. Jeff Cobb versus Toru Yano. Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. And the main event of the evening is Switchblade, Jay White versus Tetsuya Naito. And for night 19, you will have some random matches, and the main event of the evening will be the winner of A Block versus the winner of B Block. So I'm predicting that the winner of A Block will be Kota Ibushi, B Block winner, Switchblade, Jay White. Let's talk about WWE, and the only thing I will be talking about is the ticket selling at this Sunday's pay-per-view. There are tickets still available for this Sunday's pay-per-view, WWE Stomping Ground, and there are about 10 sections that are available for seatings. And unfortunately, I think either the WWE will have the audience move to that section, or maybe have a camera view in a mirror way. And the funny thing is, WWE events could sell out in more than a month, which is sad to think about. At least that one Saudi event sold out 3 hours later, and there's nothing much to say about that. But hey, at least AEW All Out was sold out in 15 minutes. It should have been sold out at least 80,000 people in a stadium. So that's all I got for today's episode of Wrestling News with the Dude. So with that being said, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe for more content. Tap that little bell so you don't want to miss an upload. So, as what Naito say, hasta mañana, adios.